Hello everybody and welcome back to another not applicable Formula 1 video. I hope that you're well. I hope you're ready and raring to go for the second week of livery reveals in Formula 1 because Williams got us underway this Monday morning. They revealed their FW45 livery for the 2023 season. And I think there's actually quite a lot to delve into here with Williams. So let's sort of break it down a little bit, talk the drivers, talk the new team principal, and sort of debate whether or not Williams can actually take any steps forward in 2023. First and foremost, the livery reveal itself obviously went down this morning. The FW45 unveiling its new livery, but not the actual car itself. It was another one of those Formula 1, here's the new livery, but the car we're going to keep secret for another couple of weeks. And Williams did show off their new livery. I think it's very similar to last year's. I like the fact they've still integrated the Duracell logo, but it just seemed like a very strange car livery reveal ceremony to me. I think, the fact that American rookie Logan Sargent was there was really lovely to see. The fact that Alex Albon was there was really lovely to see. And the fact that those two look like they're already starting to gel and build up a little bit of a relationship. I think that's a great driver pairing moving forward for Williams. But it felt strange not having James Vowles there. I suppose at least we do know that James Vowles is going to be taking over from Jos Capito. Obviously, Jos Capito came out of retirement to take the team principal role at Williams. They kind of convinced him to come out of retirement to take it. So he was never going to be around for a very long time. I think they were a little bit surprised that Jos Capito left when he did, though. And therefore, James Vowles coming in from the Mercedes team is a big step forward, is a big change for the Williams setup. But it's something that hasn't actually happened yet. Like, we know it's happening, but it hasn't happened yet because he doesn't leave Mercedes until February 20th, 3 days before the drivers begin 2023 preseason testing at Bahrain. So they've already had this sort of preseason testing and preseason building without their team principal, which just seems like a crazy amount of work for Williams to try and do. And then James Vowles is going to come in and might change up quite a few things before the season even gets started. Like, the physical Williams car, the FW45, is set to hit the track in Silverstone Shakedown on February 13th. And I know that they've taken the opportunity to heavily evolve the side pod concept. They're optimizing the power unit cooling. Obviously, they've still got the Mercedes engine. They've still got lots of links to the Mercedes team, but James Vowles hasn't actually come in yet. James Vowles hasn't had any idea of what's going on in this Williams team as of yet. I know he's probably seen some emails, seen some concepts, but he's not been able to really ingrain himself into the Williams team, and he's not going to be able to do so until 3 days before they've started testing. So I don't know how much he can really bring before the season gets started, and I think it's going to be a very slow process, a very slow evolution of Williams out of Jos Capito and into this James Vowles era. And I think this James Vowles era could last a little while. I think if there's one thing that does go James Vowles' way, though, is that he's got a really lovely driver pairing at Williams. Alex Albon, I think, is really, really good. And I actually think Logan Sargent will do better than most people are giving him credit for. Let's talk about Alex Albon first, though. He says that Williams are definitely in a better position for 2023, but warns not to expect a Haas-style jump in performance. And I think that's fair enough. I don't think that we're going to see Alex Albon and Williams, jumping up into constant points positions. If we're looking at last year, Williams only scored 8 points in the entirety of last season. 4 of those came courtesy of Alex Albon. You could argue that, the couple of points Nick de Vries got probably would have also gone to Alex Albon had he not had that problem and had to miss that race. But by's the by. Obviously, rookie Logan Sargent coming in. I don't think Logan Sargent's going to pick up that many points over the course of the season. I still think it's going to be Alex Albon kind of fighting at the front for Williams. And you have to remember, he was quite close on a few occasions. If that Williams car just had an extra 10th or maybe things went a little bit differently, there were a few races there where Alex Albon finished, like 11th, 12th, 13th. And on a different day, could have picked up some points. But I think that moving into this season, he said it's hard to say where they're going to be. I would say they're definitely in a better position than where they were at the end of last year, but they don't really know how this is going to transfer onto the new circuit, and they don't know how it's going to really be a big step forward, especially when other teams are going to be making a step forward as well. So Alex Albon is optimistic, but not, massively hopeful that they're going to jump off the bottom of the table straight away. And that's what Alex Albon said in terms of that Haas comparison. He said, I'd say at the start of the year, I don't think it's something like Haas where we're going to come out of the blocks and we're straight away very competitive. We've changed a lot on the car in terms of its philosophy and the areas that we're trying to change through a corner, the behavior of the car that might take its time to understand and optimize. And I think that's the thing that Williams are kind of looking for. I think if you're a Williams driver or if you're part of the Williams team, you have to look super long term at this point. I think we were all very optimistic that coming into 2022, the massive design change, philosophy change for the entire grid was maybe an opportunity for them to jump forwards. They didn't take it. And I think now we're looking, again, very long term for Williams. Alex Albon said himself, in terms of upgrades last year, we only had one significant one. Hopefully, we'll be able to bring out smaller, more significant ones throughout the year. I think they want to try and spread that out a little bit. And I think the same for Haas. Haas is quite a good comparison for Williams in that they were able to take that jump forward between 2021 and 2022. It took a 2021 season that was absolutely abysmal for Haas. And I don't think Williams will want to have that at any point, but maybe they have to. Maybe they just have to say at some point, we're going to cut this season. We're going to look for 2026, maybe, where that new regulation change is coming in, which is going to be as small as possible, as minimal as possible, and try and bring up something. They need to change something to get themselves off the bottom of the rankings. And that's where this man comes in for me. I think as much as Alex Albon is the now for And that's where this man comes in for me. I think as much as Alex Albon is the now for Williams, right? I think Alex Albon is going to get absolutely every single inch out of that Williams car in this 2023 season. Logan Sargent, for me, is the kind of driver that they could try and build around in 3 or 4 seasons' time. We're talking about 2026, the new big regulation change in Formula 1, and that possibly being the next opportunity for Williams to take a real step forward. Logan Sargent, if he could have 2023, 2024, 2025, those 3 seasons in Formula 1, and we usually say, that 3-4 season margin, you look at Lando Norris, George Russell, Charles Leclerc, once they've had that 3-4 years in Formula 1, you see this really big step up. If Logan Sargent could come into his 4th year in Formula 1 in 2026 and be the main man for Williams, this guy that they've built around for that entire time, I think we're looking at something really, really special here with Logan Sargent. He said that he would describe himself as someone that puts in a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice, and I think exactly what Williams need right now. They need a driver who is willing to just give absolutely everything and fight for absolutely everything for that team. George Russell, I think, came into Williams, but always knew he was going to Mercedes, right? And if anything, George Russell has talked about how he didn't really want to stay at Williams for 3 years. He maybe wanted to do 1 or 2 and then leave that Williams team. He just couldn't because of the contract situation with Claire Williams, and Claire Williams did an exceptional job to keep hold of George Russell. I don't think Logan Sargent is on the level of George Russell. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Logan Sargent is this future Formula 1 world champion, but I think he could be an exceptional driver for Williams to break them up into the midfield, to try and drag a Williams up the grid a little bit in the next few seasons. He moved to Europe at a young age. He worked incredibly hard to make this happen. Without going into too much detail, he said, I just gave up a lot for this opportunity. And I completely agree with him. I think he was one of those drivers that probably could have come into Formula 1 a couple of years ago. I think we're talking about Nicholas Latifi not being good enough, right? But if there's one thing I'd say to look out for when it comes to Logan Sargent, it's definitely his qualifying pace. Pushed on what he says feels particularly good behind the wheel. Sargent continued to say that, I hope a bit of everything. To be honest, I feel like my qualifying is my bread and butter. It's always been my favorite point of the weekend when the car is light, the new tires are on, and it's just a chance to lay it all on the line and give it absolutely everything. And this guy is absolutely electric. When he clicks with the car, he is phenomenal when it comes to qualifying pace. I think that's something that Williams can offer him. We talk about George Russell again. That's going to be the link that comes up quite a lot, I think, in this 2023 season, is thinking back to George Russell in his first season in Formula 1 with Williams and trying to make those links. I know that George Russell won Formula 2 and it is very different, but I think that's the closest comparison that we can have in terms of that qualifying pace as well. George Russell was known as Mr. Saturday. I think Logan Sargent could be that next Mr. Saturday at Williams, where he just puts in a few performances over the course of the Grand Prix weekends and just absolutely lights it up in terms of qualifying. And we know that actually, if you qualify well in these 2022 cars, with the Williams' straight line speed as well, we saw it with Nick de Vries in Monza. If you can qualify really well, sometimes you can just dig out some points in these Williams cars. And I think that's where Logan Sargent could really start to click. As I said before, I'm not really expecting too much from Williams in this 2023 season. I'm not expecting any massive jumps in performance. I think they're still going to be 10th in the constructor standings, for instance. I think they're still going to be 19th and 20th in the driver standings. Maybe Alex Albon can push himself up into like 18th or 17th, depending on how the points swing and whether or not he can, have 1 or 2 Grand Prix where something goes wrong for quite a lot of the drivers and picks up like a P5 or P6 out of absolutely nowhere. That'd be ridiculous, but also it happens in Formula 1 sometimes. These drivers can just get a little bit lucky. And, if you get yourself 10 points in a Grand Prix, that is an exceptional amount of points for those guys towards the back of the grid. So you never really know when it comes to Williams. I'm not expecting too much. I think James Vowles coming in is a great move forward. I think that he's going to instill a lot of those Mercedes values into this Williams team, but I think it's going to take time. I think, again, we're looking at James Vowles having 2, maybe 3 seasons before he really embeds everything that he wants within the team. I think we're looking at Logan Sargent as the future of that Formula 1 team. As much as I love Alex Albon, I think Alex Albon will look for drives elsewhere and will get the opportunity to drive elsewhere as well. I think Alex Albon now has that pedigree about him. He's been in and around the Formula One grid enough that, if a midfield team does have a slot open up and they haven't got a young driver that they really want to fill with that gap, if you want someone to just do a job, a consistent job for you, a little bit like Haas have done with Nico Hulkenberg, bringing him in, right? I think Alex Albon could be one of those drivers in the future where you're just looking at, okay, I need a job done. Alex Albon is a great driver to just get a job done. And therefore, I think, you're looking at Alex Albon being the bread and butter winner for this team in the 2023 season, and then Logan Sargent being that star of the future for me. But I'd love to know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think that the team will actually be able to finish any higher than 10th in the constructor standings, or either of the drivers will be able to finish any higher than 19th in the driver standings? I personally don't think so, but I'd love to know your thoughts. And whilst you're down there, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you next time.